reporting mechanism for people. And based on what's on their website, we know that there are about 110 311 systems and or centralized customer service systems. Not all local government call centers have use a 311 number. Some of them have a seven-digit number that they use instead. But we also know that there are probably another, right now, I want to say 50 to 60 communities investigating it. In fact, last week I was out in the Phoenix area where they're considering a regional 311 system that would involve Phoenix, Mesa, Tempe, and some of the other communities out there. So you are in good company with having a 311 system. We want to talk just a little bit about how this system will work. And what we're trying to do is create an end-to-end process. So from the time the customer calls and reports a customer service problem, it's going to go through the Philly 311 system. They will report the data from that call down to the Philly Stat program, and then also relay the service request onto the service departments. When the service departments have finished up with responding to a particular request, it comes back so that the Philly 311 folks know and can report that out. But then also the Philly Stat people have the data, corresponding data, so you can use that for your continuous improvement processes here in the city. So, Elizabeth, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, great. So this morning Tim said that we traveled from far. I'll tell you that I traveled all the way from Mount Airy, so didn't travel too far this morning. But one of the things he wanted to do today was talk about the strategic goals for the city and how the 311 project impacts some of those. So of those goals, the two that are really most effective are the goal for Philadelphia to become one of America's safest cities, as well as the goal that Philadelphia government works efficiently and effectively with integrity and responsiveness. And we're going to explore kind of how 311 relates to each of those goals. So in terms of safety, the real opportunity with 311 is to offload non-emergency calls from the 911 system and move them into the 311 capability. That enables a number of things. One of those is by having a kind of a customer service focus on dealing with non-emergency issues, you improve the level of citizen engagement. People know they can call, they know that information is being recorded, action is being taken on it. And we'll talk a little bit more about the citizen responsiveness piece in another slide or two. It also gives you greater ability to look at trending data by neighborhood. That's one of the features in a CRM system, is an ability to link very precisely to addresses, to zones, to districts within the city. And that neighborhood trending data can be very useful for many departments, obviously including the police department with the focus on safety and dealing with specific types of problems. Problems shift and evolve over time. 311 gives you the ability to track new types of problems and look historically at what the path is. You know, where have we been, where are we going in terms of dealing with specific issues. This can lead to some considerable cost savings and efficiencies for police departments. So some of the data, some of the stats that you might pull in here are in a number of cities where they have taken specific types of issues that previously had gone into 911 but now go into 311. So some examples: in Washington, D.C., reports of vandalism, minor theft or property damage, parking violations. So those are some examples there. In Pittsburgh, they're handling abandoned vehicles and suspected drug locations. Oklahoma City, similarly building on some of these themes. In Oklahoma City, they're reporting derelict vehicles, parking violations, drug, gang, or prostitution activity, and traffic enforcement. In Minneapolis, they've built it up to 18 different non-emergency type reports going through 311, having offloaded those from the 911 system. In terms of what that has helped some cities to do, in Baltimore they've seen a 50% reduction in the answer time in 911. So that's the amount of time that somebody is sitting hearing a phone ringing and waiting to speak to someone. They've seen, as a result of reducing those answer times, they've seen a 50% drop in abandoned calls. So that's when someone just gets frustrated and hangs up the phone and doesn't even wait to speak to an agent. All in all, 25% of the call volumes have been offloaded from 911, and they've seen a 12% reduction in police dispatch. So that means there's an ability to kind of deal most effectively with the problem that's being reported, dispatch police where that makes sense, but deal with other kinds of non-emergency issues more appropriately. Houston has seen a 14% drop in non-emergency calls going into 911. So these kinds of things have resulted in cost savings and better allocation of resources for police departments, and also provided a good vehicle for emergency response and disaster recovery preparedness, because there's a good contact center for folks to connect with. If you take a look at responsiveness to citizens, 311 helps with, obviously that really easy to remember number. Instead of the many pages, if you go to the phone book and you look at the blue pages with all the government numbers, I don't know about you, but scrolling through those is a little challenging. 311 is obviously much easier than sorting through all of those numbers. Creating a single point of contact for reporting and resolving issues that citizens have, and putting the power in the hands of the citizens to actually be able to track those requests and see what the status is. That's a great way to also manage people's expectations. We all know there's some things that can be done in a matter of hours, but there are other things that take weeks. So it is far better to be able to have that conversation with the citizen right away when they report something, set expectations as to what the turnaround time for this can be. Fulfilling those expectations is obviously the next step, but for people to really understand what it takes to solve a problem matters a lot when there's a citizen that's trying to deal with an issue. All of this helps to broaden citizens' ability to engage with local government, right? Because it's easy to make the call, it's easy to find out what's happening, and gives us the opportunity to leverage some social media channels. There are cities that have done a lot with web-based self-reporting. So self-service, I can get in, I can enter what my need is, I can see what the status of that is. Some of those opportunities, which are great for citizen engagement, are also great for cost savings. So there are a couple of cities that have worked with this, and I'm looking here to make sure I get the right ones, but I think it's Los Alamos County and Las Vegas have implemented the self-service reporting and have been able to reduce the number of FTEs that are taking calls, as well as to just reduce the volume of calls coming into 311. So that gives them the ability to repurpose those resources into other activities. And if lastly, we'll take a look at the efficiency and effectiveness piece. One of the great advantages of a 311 tool is it gives you a really robust set of data about what are the kinds of problems that come in and what does it take us to actually resolve those problems. So an ability to do monitoring and trending and understand what it really takes to do the work that we're all trying to do. That data can be used to really re-engineer processes and reallocate resources appropriately. If you're able to make something more efficient, whether it's the process of taking calls or the process of responding, that gives you an opportunity for cost savings, or an ability to take resources that are doing something today and expand them to do a greater level of service. If you're able, for example, to notice that there is a trend in a particular area, better equip the agents on the phone to deal with responding to an issue. That'll reduce the amount of talk time, the amount of time they spend on the phone. That'll reduce the amount of time they spend wrapping that call up and moving it to the next step in the process, thereby kind of buying more capability within the 311 system within the process. It also tends to help you reduce the amount of time required to look at reports, generate reports, scrub the data. Well, we call this thing here and that thing there, so if I want to understand how it's going, I've got to change reports, I've got to spend a lot of time in Excel, which can be a real burden on management to kind of figure out what's happening, allowing less time for people to be able to actually implement improvements. So getting some robust reporting in place really helps the ability for supervisors and managers to really implement change and not just spend their time on reporting. So there are some cities and counties that have experienced some significant savings. In Miami-Dade, they've been able to reduce field overtime from 15% to 2%. Baltimore saw a savings of $43 million. Chattanooga was able to hold increases to just 1% annually for 3 years and actually achieved a surplus of $8 million. And it was a matter of utilizing the reporting capability to find those little improvement areas that could kind of keep making the process better and better and better. So just a little bit of stats to kind of give you an idea for what's possible. I'd like to turn it over to Spencer next, who's going to talk about how we move forward.
Good morning. I'm actually from Chicago. Live in Evanston, right outside of Chicago, home to Northwestern University. I'm wearing purple today, homage to them. Maybe got my purple pen. But it's good to be back in Philly. I did my graduate work here at Wharton in the 90s, so I always enjoy coming back to the city. And it's nice to see that so much the transformation that's going on here. I don't get back here as much as I'd like to, but it's great to see the energy that's going on in the city. So enough about that. Let's get to this. So what we're doing here today is eventually we are going to be implementing a new CRM system. It's going to be replacing the existing piece of software that you have in place today, which is a piece of software called Novo. Who has interacted with Novo? Show of hands. Okay, about half of you. Does it work well for your needs? Does it not work well? Feel free to speak up. This is a safe zone here, guys.
We all say it has its challenges, but for now it's an effective piece of tool.
Okay. And what team are you with? What department?
311.
Okay. Any other feedback? Okay. If you want to talk to me afterwards in private, that's okay too. So eventually, what's happening is Novo has been very effective in helping launch 311, helping get the service off the ground. But as constituents' needs are changing and evolving, becoming more complex, and we're trying to leverage new channels, as Elizabeth mentioned, social media, for example, mobile, for example, the functionality of Novo isn't necessarily where the city wants it to be in order to handle the increased volume, the increased complexity, and the increased integrations with other pieces of software that need to be in place. So these are some of the key drivers as to why the city's looking to replace, kind of upgrade Novo. It was great at the beginning, and it met a crucial need for the city. But like I said, as the city becomes more complex, as constituents' demands change, we need to evolve with that, and that's why we need to get a new system. And we just don't want to go and buy something off the shelf. We need to get your input as the employees, as the stakeholders here in the city, to make sure that we get a system that meets your needs. So that's really the purpose. These are some of the specific goals. Some of this stuff Novo does okay, but moving forward, we're looking to get an application that actually does these key goals better. And these are some of the goals that were articulated to us from David Wilson, Rosetta Carrington-Lew, some of the key executives within the city. They need data in order to run their operations better and more efficiently. And the hope is leveraging this new CRM application can give them the data that they need to help move this forward. These are the 6 phases. Business planning, which is what we're doing now. The kickoff meetings, etc. Next, the implementation readiness, etc. So this process is going to take a while. I'm going to kind of jump to the next slide because the next slide actually articulates the specific timetables involved with each of these 6 phases. But this is going to take a while to do. This is not, like I said, something that you're not going to get this new system in a couple months. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done here within the city to make sure that we're making the right decision. This is a very big procurement. This is a constituent-facing application, and we don't want to, make any, quick decisions here without involving the key stakeholders within the city as well as within the community. So what I'm going to do is jump to the next slide, which kind of goes through the timing of it. So this is where we're at now, the business planning. This actually started, I would say, sometime in December, right, Corey? We've been in touch with Tim, who's the project manager, Rosetta Carrington Liu, and David Wilson are kind of the executive sponsors of this initiative. And I know this also has, Mayor Nutter is definitely a key player. This is on his radar, or something that he wants to, push forward. So, through that, Rich Nagrin and Everett Gillison are actively also involved in this from an executive sponsorship perspective. So I think if you look at the way the team is being formed, it's not finalized yet, it's still being formed. We do have a lot of the key players here within the city to help push this initiative forward. So like I said, the first phase is the business planning that involves stakeholdering, doing these meetings with you guys to educate you on what's going on, to get you engaged in the process, to create the dialogue. Visioning, we articulated in an earlier slide what some of the goals and objectives are of this project. What is the future state going to look like? There's going to be improved workflow. There's going to be more of a multi-channel sort of approach in how we deal with the citizens. Greater integrations between different pieces of software. You guys have some really good work order management systems and some licensing and permitting systems. We need to make sure that those seamlessly integrate with the new piece of CRM software, so we're not rekeying data. We're not using Excel spreadsheets or Access databases. We want everything kind of housed in the same database, because that's going to make it easier for you guys to access the information, create the request, etc. Also during this phase, we're going to be identifying people that potentially could be on the implementation team, which is phase 6. So, we need to, even though this is, a while away, going to be starting next year, we need to start building the team and building the governance structures immediately. So if you guys are interested in getting involved in this, please let Tim know, because we're looking to, like I said, to build this team, from kind of a grassroots level. And obviously you're here, you have some interest or some engagement in this, you're involved with teams that are going to be using, departments that are actually going to be using the new application. So it's great to get kind of this grassroots level support to make sure that when we're doing the implementation, we're designing the workflow and the processes to incorporate, the issues that are critical to you guys. So that's kind of what's involved with the business planning. We're going to be putting together a report. We're doing more interviews, one-on-one interviews, tomorrow and Friday, both with folks from the IT, as well as key executives, as well as personnel in the various departments, kind of manager level and up. And then we're going to be putting together kind of an analysis that's going to be delivered sometime in February, right, Corey? Is the timetable for that. The next phase, the implementation readiness assessment, this kind of, phase 1 kind of rolls right into phase 2. There's not going to be like a break and we'll say, okay, here's the report, and then we'll see you guys in about 3 months. That's not the way it's going to work. You'll probably be seeing a lot of us. I think you'll probably be seeing, for the first 2 phases, you'll probably be seeing Corey and Elizabeth maybe a little bit more than you'll be seeing me, because they're really going to be taking the lead on those 2 phases. So what we're looking at here with the implementation readiness assessment is we're going to be focused on the technology infrastructure of the city. What sort of changes need to happen with the technology, with the information technology infrastructure, to make sure that the CRM system is going to work effectively. We just can't buy a new piece of software if we don't have the piping to support it. It's not going to work that well. So we're going to be spending a lot of time with the DOT, Department of Technology, to make sure that the infrastructure is in place to support the new application. We're going to be looking at different types of technology options. Are people here familiar with software as a service, the cloud? Does that ring a bell? A couple head nods, yeah. There's a lot of CRM applications that are offered as a software as a service basis, which, in theory, and I would say in practice, do not require as much of an infrastructure investment from the city, because the data is being hosted somewhere else, usually on a server farm in Montana or Idaho or something like that. So if you don't need as much servers, you can save some money from that perspective, and you also don't need to create the massive server rooms with the climate-controlled environment, etc. So that's one of the things we're going to be spending a lot of time talking to the IT folks about, to understand where are we at from a technology perspective. What's the level of receptivity between a traditional on-premise deployment versus a software as a service deployment. We're going to be looking at mobility options. So that's something that's actually going on right now. Is Tim and Rosetta are actually looking at developing mobile apps that folks can use via their smartphones to report different types of service requests throughout the city. Integration with PhillyStat. You guys have a really, really good reporting system already in place. We got to make sure that the new system integrates well with that, with PhillyStat. And also there's a new platform out there that is being used by some cities called Open 311. Does that ring a bell with anyone? So I finally got you, no hands. So Open 311 is, they're trying to create like a national standard for 311 systems that different cities can kind of upload data and share data, so it's easier to do benchmarking, and it's a question of kind of creating application protocol interfaces or APIs between these different systems. There's a couple cities that are kind of on the leading edge of this. One of them is San Francisco and Minneapolis, and Elizabeth had mentioned previously. City of Chicago, where I live, is looking into doing it. It's still pretty new at this point, but I know it's something that is on the radar screen of David Wilson and the mayor, because they are all about transparency and sharing data and helping kind of communicate performance out to the constituents. So that's another issue that we'll be looking at there. Phase 3 and Phase 4, that's where you're going to be seeing more of me and I think more of Elizabeth too. These phases take a little bit longer. One of in Phase 3, we're actually going to be writing the RFP and determining the requirements. So that's a situation where we're going to be coming back to you guys, meeting with you guys during the sessions, giving you kind of a list of what we think are good requirements that this software needs to do. You know, what does the software need to do in order to make your job easier? That's the bottom line. So we'll be sitting down with you to collect the requirements. You know, this is going to be a critical, input for us. You guys, a lot of you guys are the front lines, the supervisors, the managers that are dealing with this software. What does it need to do for you to make your job easier? So that is developing the requirements, and then the requirements get folded into the overall RFP. So we'll be working with your attorneys, the city attorney, and the city's procurement department to make sure that we're fully compliant with the RFP development. But the key thing here from your perspective is we're going to get re-engaged with you guys, at least I think Elizabeth and I are kind of leading Phase 3, get re-engaged with you guys to understand what your needs are and how the system can address them. So that's Phases 3. Phase 4, system selection. So after we do Phase 3, we're going to be getting tons of responses from these vendors. They're going to be thick 3-ring binders, probably multiple 3-ring binders, that I don't think you guys are going to have to review them. So I'm sure you're grateful for that. But people like Rosetta, David, and Tim, kind of the steering committee, if you will, they're going to be reviewing these and making a determination as to which vendors get elevated to come back here to do on-site demos. And I think that's going to probably be another opportunity for you guys to get re-engaged, to come and kind of see these demos, create like a lab environment where you guys can sit down and play with the application and help, support the decision-making process. We're hoping to have that wrapped up in October 2012. Once we make the determination as to which vendor we're going to go with, we enter into contract negotiations. Now, we have a 3-month timetable here. We realize that not a lot of stuff gets done in December, some holidays, etc. This phase could take 1 month. This phase can maybe take 4 months. It depends on how well the lawyers for each organization play with each other, if they're in the same sandbox or if they're in different sandboxes. I've seen the contract negotiations kind of drag out, because typically at this point, this is the first time that the lawyers get involved in the process. They're typically, the salespeople and the project manager from the city, and now the lawyers get involved in actually creating the contract. So it depends how well they play together. This could be 1 month, this could be 4 months. It depends. And then the last phase is the actual implementation. And that's something where you'll be seeing us a lot again. We are kind of the oversight, if you will, to make sure that the vendor that is selected is meeting the specifications in their statement of work and in their contract. So this phase is, we have it as a very, long period of time, because we're going to be taking a phased approach to the deployment. We're not going to say, okay, all these departments are going to go on all at once. As part of the, Phase 1 and Phase 2, we're going to identify specific departments that would be good for the pilot phase, if you will. And once we get those organizations on and kind of do like a soft launch, work out the kinks in the system, then we'll be able to deploy it to more and more departments. But we typically, in the pilot phase, like to use the departments that we feel are going to get more bang for the buck, the ones that have a lot of interaction with constituents and are able to kind of generate the data that the executives within the city really want to see. So the other specific tasks in this phase, am I okay on time? Okay.
You're good. You're
Okay,
good.
I feel like I've been up here for a while. So the other key points for phase 6, we're going to be re-engineering your business processes. We have this new piece of software. We're going to be using new channels to communicate. We're going to be having new integrations between the CRM system and your licensing and permitting or the work order system. So the way you're doing business today could very well be transformed. And we want to make sure you guys are involved in that transformation. We don't want to, take a process that's not efficient and automate this bad process with a new tool that doesn't really give us the benefits that we want. And then at the same vein, we don't want to be re-engineering these processes without your input, because at the end of the day, you guys are going to be responsible for fulfilling this stuff. So we can kind of come up with approaches, but they need to be realistic within the confines of your tools, your skill sets, etc. Obviously, a significant amount of training will take place. We'll be identifying super users. The call center agents, the folks in the 301 are going to be trained. The folks in the departments, especially the pilot departments, they're going to be trained. We're going to be developing key performance indicators, which are going to align with the Philly stat. What are the key metrics that these departments and these executives within the city need to have in order to run their operations more efficiently? And once again, that's information that's going to be kind of driven by you guys, because you guys are kind of like in the front line, the manager, the supervisor level, that are really interfacing more directly with the constituents. So we want to take your feedback and develop key performance indicators that are important to the constituents. We don't want to develop key performance indicators that are maybe important to the executives but have no relevance to the constituents. That just doesn't matter. The other thing is, the building of the software, configuring, designing, building, testing. And I think you guys will be actively involved in the testing of the software. We just don't want to, create this and just go live with it. We want to test it with you guys, make sure that the interface looks correct, the drop-down menus, everything is ready to go prior to doing our public launch. So that's another opportunity for you guys to get involved in helping actually design and configure the software, working directly with the software vendors. And of course, post-launch support. Once we, have the ribbon cutting ceremony that you had. Was it 2008 or 2009? Was the ribbon cutting ceremony?
2008.
Yes. I remember seeing the mayor. I think Camille was there. There'll probably be another one. So once we have the ribbon cutting ceremony, we're not done. We can get the good press and have a nice pizza lunch or some sort of celebration. But it's going to be really important to kind of keep abreast of the situation. Now that we're actually live with this thing, what sort of changes do we need to make as we're interfacing with the constituents? So we're still, once we have the ribbon cutting ceremony, we're not totally going away. We're still going to be a little bit in the background to help enhance and refine the system. So, any questions? Great. You want me to do this one or you? Okay, that's what I thought. So, like I said, you're here just to create awareness, hopefully create some excitement, saying, hey, I want to get involved with this thing. This sounds really cool. I think this is going to be great for the city. I mean, we think it's going to be great for the city. We hope that you guys also, share our excitement about the relevancy and the importance of this project. What we need from you is, as we're going through this process, these are going to be some of the key inputs that we're going to need. We want you to kind of, hopefully you'll be excited about this, be advocates within your departments, within your teams, saying, hey, this is coming out. This is going to really help kind of make our jobs easier, do a better job of reporting, enhance our workflow. I mean, that's what we need, is we like to create kind of advocates within the specific teams to generate interest and excitement. And to take it to the next level, to the extent you want to get involved with this implementation team, please let Tim know, because clearly we're going to need a lot of support. This is going to be an enterprise-wide initiative touching eventually nearly all the departments within the city. So in order to make it successful, we need folks representing all those departments. It just can't be something that comes out of the MDO office or DOT. It needs to come from the departments that are specifically impacted by the application. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Corey to wrap up our conversation. conversation.
Spencer already did a really good job, I think, of covering the steps that we're going to be taking in order to implement, or select and implement the new CRM system. This kind of just recaps those. But I guess from standpoint, if you think about it on a personal level, we all have to do background research if we're deciding to move from one self-reflection. So that's what we're trying to do with the system, is just kind of get all that information, bring all the research together, and figure out what's going to work best and be a best fit for Philadelphia. With that, I just wanted to kind of leave you with who the primary contacts are for this project. And as Spencer said, you can certainly ask us questions now, or you can ask us questions, if you want to pull us off to the side too. But we really do. It's really important to understand that we need your input, we need your feedback in getting a new system and making sure that it's a system that works for everybody in the city of Philadelphia.